This is gonna be good. Hey BJet Clean team, it's Ryan. Welcome to my channel. This channel is all things aviation, and I use my experience as a former F-15E combat fighter pilot, F-16 Thunderbird pilot, and current commercial pilot to break down awesome aviation videos and stories. And someone asked me on the @BJetClean Instagram if I could put head to head the J-20 versus the F-35. So ask and you shall receive, my friend. So stay to the very end of this video, because at the end, I'll give my final thoughts on what I think would happen if these two beasts were to meet on a dark and stormy night. And before we get going, if you would, just dominate that like button for me and maybe even subscribe. Every time you like and subscribe, you create a little sonic boom somewhere in the world. It's beautiful. With that said, let's dive in, and we'll start with the J-20. All right, so right off the bat, you see the tail almost at full deflection, like a 90-degree angle towards the front of the jet. That makes me feel all warm and cozy inside, because that tells me that this jet's gonna have some impressive ability to move once it's airborne. And then of note, you see those four little lights at the top of the tail. Well, that's for nighttime flying. Those are like little glow in the dark, like glow stick type things that if you're in formation position, you can see certain references on the aircraft. And if you're far away and you have night vision goggles on, you'll be able to pick up this thing relatively easy with those strips on it. Okay, so this is like a War Thunder CGI based trailer, but it's gonna give us, I think, a great outline of what this jet has to offer. And right off the bat, you see the Delta wings on the back and you see the canards on the front. The key with the canards, guys, that I wanna share with you is if this thing stalls, it's gonna stall nose up, which it means it needs to have a lot of control authority on the back of those Delta wings to allow the nose to drop. Because when you stall a plane, you have to let the nose drop in order to get it flying again. If you don't let the nose drop, then you're just gonna be this flat out to sea type thing, like what happens in Top Gun when they can't get out of that and they have to punch out. So with that design feature of the canards in the front, it has some limitations. That's why I typically like the run-of-the-mill basic aircraft that has the elevators in the back. So like those canards are in the back, and a wing that doesn't bleed off as much energy. But more on that a little bit down the road. Okay, right there, seeing the HUD, the heads-up display, and the canopy. The canopy has what's called a canopy bow. And guys, this reminds me of my first love, the F-15E. They say that one's the sweetest, right? So with the F-15E, it had a great HUD, just a massive HUD, gave you tons of information. That was one of the main reasons I look forward to flying that thing. Is just the ability to see so much in front of you was very, very great as a pilot, because it gave me more awareness, and having situational awareness is huge. More on that a little bit later, but you can see on the J-20 there, it looks to have a pretty decent HUD. So I think you're gonna get a lot of good information out of that. It does have the canopy bow, which, you know, for a 5th generation fighter, I think that's a limitation, because that canopy bow is potentially going to decrease the stealth capability of the J-20. And then the HUD itself, I think, you know, the next round of fighters that are built, they won't have a HUD, because you'll be able to get so much more information in your visor, in your helmet itself. Now the F-22 has a HUD as well, but that thing has 1996 technology. So I would expect from the J-20 maybe to have a little better interoperability between the pilot and the visor and the helmet, so it wouldn't need the HUD. So definitely a limitation there. And then on the back there, you can see the engines. Those to me look like run-of-the-mill Su-35 engines, so like 4th generation at best. I don't think these are going to provide much stealth for the J-20. And there is some controversy going on with the engines. So China was buying their engines from Russia, and then Russia kind of made a shady deal, and China was like, nah, I don't want that anymore, bro. So they are now designing and building their own indigenous engines for the J-20, which supposedly will have super cruise and the ability to have thrust vectoring. Now with thrust vectoring, guys, what you're going to get is the ability to help that plane pitch down if you do get into a stall, because again, with the canards, it's harder to recover from a stall. So that will be an upgrade once China finally gets their own engines onto the J20. But as you know, I've talked about this before. I actually do an F22 versus J20 video. And anytime you start adding on new and different things, it can be a struggle for the airframe to integrate with the new technology. Overall, I think their engine upgrades will be good, but it's going to take a while for that to settle out and become a mission capable integration. All right, right there, I do like how they have the left engine spooling up faster than the right engine. And that's how jet engines work, guys. These things have like a little bit of a mind of their own. I mean, they're such complex machines that they're not gonna spin up at exactly the same rate. So I thought that was cool how they had that included. Okay, so that was Maverick's trademark move. It's literally like they pulled that out of the Top Gun trailer. That's called the Cobra maneuver. And that's when Maverick says, I'll slam on the brakes and they'll fly right by. I do think it's interesting though that the J20 is actually the plane that gets kind of caught up in the Cobra maneuver. It's kind of like, they're like, yeah, this thing's susceptible to a Cobra maneuver. But if you're in another 5th gen aircraft and a 5th gen aircraft in front of you does that, you'll have a great opportunity there to kind of create distance by doing the same thing. So if that jet tries to do a Cobra maneuver, you just do the same thing, maybe kind of turn slightly so you can keep visual of that other aircraft so you wouldn't fall prey to the Cobra maneuver. But, I think Maverick's going to come after them for a trademark violation after that. Okay, so that formation position that you're looking at right there, that is not a tactical formation position. What is a tactical formation position is a formation called tactical. Wonder why they called it tactical. So this formation is more of like coming into land or, putting on some sort of presentation. Now, what you would typically do in a tactical formation is have at least a mile between you and the other aircraft. This from a distance, let's say you're 20 miles away and you're up in an aircraft looking at this is going to look like a B-52 because those planes right next to each other are just going to look like a massive aircraft. They're going to be easy to spot. Okay, so there is that J20 CGI-based trailer. Next, we're going to dive into the moment you've all been waiting for, and that is the F-35, which is supposedly one of the most advanced multi-role fighters ever made.
At Lockheed Martin, our mission is to keep you mission ready. And the F-35 Lightning II delivers. When advanced engineering matters most. When air superiority requires superior technology. When precision means you're ready for all possibilities.
Okay, so this formation position right here is called close trail. It's when number 2 is just kind of tucked in really nicely behind number 1. And this is something that I would always look forward to because as the number 2 position here, you're just kind of doing the stick and rudder stuff and you're enjoying the view. Plus you've got an awesome fighter jet up in front of you that you're checking out. I mean, it's just a really fun place to be because number 1 in this position is going to be doing all the navigating, all the complicated stuff. So number 2 here is just worried about enjoying the ride. Close trail is what this position is called. They're doing a pass and review for the boat here. So this is what you would do close to home in like a safer area. You wouldn't do this because this is not a tactical formation. So you wouldn't be rocking this in combat, but it's so fun.
The F-35 is a step ahead. With unmatched stealth, advanced sensors, and seamless connectivity. The F-35 can go where no other fighter can go. See what no other fighter can see. Okay,
so I love that they're talking about the situational awareness, or SA. A. And really, that's the currency of the fighter pilot and fighter jet world, is how much can you see going on around you? How much can you prevent someone seeing you first? And that's what being stealth is all about. So I love that they're bringing that into this trailer, because at the end of the day, when I was flying in combat, that was kind of the main thing that was on my mind the entire time was, hey, where are the friendlies? And where are the bad guys potentially going to come from? And at all times, I wanted to know those details. When something kicked off, I wouldn't be surprised if, oh, wait, there's friendlies over here, or, the bad guys could be coming from this area. At the end of the day, situational awareness means that you have all that stuff doped. That's a technical fighter pilot term for, I got this. You have that doped and you know where the bad things are going to come and try to take you down. So that is something to me that was super important. And in the F-35, that's kind of what it was built around, was the ability to just see around it, to integrate with a lot of different sensors. So I love that they're bringing that into this trailer.
From the factory line to the front lines, we are there to see your mission through from start to finish, ensuring our men and women in uniform have a decisive advantage and come home safe every time.
So that is the F-35B there doing a vertical landing. It's called a VTOL version of the F-35, which is vertical takeoff and landing. That thing just looks impressive. I mean, the engineering that went into that, just phenomenal. And there's three key principles to life in the fighter pilot world, and I'll share those with you right now. Always make fighter jets that look really cool, give people cool call signs, and always sound cool on the radio. I think with the F-35, you have the possibility of doing all three, but just seeing that thing vertical takeoff and land is impressive.
The F-35, helping you safeguard the skies at home and abroad. It's your mission that defines our purpose, because lives depend on it. Lockheed Martin, your mission is ours.
So there you go. There's that F-35 trailer. Now, I want to give you some background details on the F-35. I'll do a full video on it later down the line, but for now, let's address the elephant in the room, okay? And that is the canopy. So most traditional fighter jets, the canopy is going to open towards the front of the jet, right? With this one, it opens facing the back. Now, let's talk about why that is. So most likely, you've probably understood by now that that lift fan is right behind the cockpit. So if you had all the linkages to the canopy back there as well, just going to be a design and engineering nightmare, and it would just cost a lot of extra maintenance hours. It kind of makes sense having it in the front due to that, but also because with fourth generation fighters, you have panels on the front of the plane, and that's how you access like the radar and other sensitive electronics. But with a stealth fighter jet, those panels are going to cause it to be less stealthy. So with the F-35, they didn't want to have those panels down there. So what they did is having that canopy open that other direction allows them to access some certain points throughout the cockpit and throughout those avionics and even back in towards the fuselage that they wouldn't have been able to anyway. And it's worth me saying, right, that the F-35B, that vertical takeoff and landing, that option is not available on all the F-35s because it's very expensive and it comes at a cost. If you have that lift fan and that variable nozzle back there, there's going to be different costs, like maybe you're not going to be able to carry as much armament or as much gas because that thing's going to take up a lot of space. But when it rolls off the assembly line, they needed to have a relatively similar structural integrity for the F-35A, which is the Air Force, the F-35B, which is the Marines, that's that vertical takeoff and landing one, and then the F-35C, which is the Navy variant. It needs to be relatively structurally similar in order for the costs to be brought down to a reasonable level. And then I gotta tell you about the F-35 helmet. It's just this huge advantage when it comes to situational awareness. And that's that currency I was telling you about that allows you to just know what's going on around you in the battle space. Now, I use the JHMX, the Joint Helmet Mounted Cueing System in the F-15E, and it was incredible because I could look to the side of the jet and see different targeting symbology. And while I'm looking to the side, I could see my altitude, my airspeed, my attitude. And when you're flying around around massive mountains and terrain that can be challenging, that is a huge advantage. But when I would look down, the canopy rail would block any other type of target symbology that I wanted to see. Now, the F-35 helmet greatly and drastically improves upon that. I mean, this helmet is super Gucci. This thing's like $500,000, made out of carbon fiber, and it just gives you incredible situational awareness in your visor. Now, in the F-35, there is no heads-up display, so there's nothing to block your vision with the visor. For me, when I was using the JHEMIX, when I looked straight ahead, it blocked out everything in my visor so I could then use the HUD. It was kind of, trying to use both, but the F-35 is purpose built for that JHEMIX, which is amazing. So I could do an entire video on the F-35 helmet. I'll save you from that right now, and I'll save that for another video, but I'm just gonna throw that out there as a huge plus for the F-35. I mean, you can even look down and see through the jet with the F-35 helmet. So speaking of Gucci, that one's the king of all Gucci. It's worth me saying too, though, that the F-35 is a multi-role fighter, like I talked to you about before. And with multi-role fighters, they're gonna have a lot of different mission sets. So there's a chance that they're not great at one. They're just decently good at a whole bunch of different mission sets. The J-20 is essentially built for air-to-air, so it's going to be more focused on that. So that might be a slight advantage that the J-20 has against the F-35. I mean, think about it. When Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather Jr., Conor was not a boxer, right? He's an MMA dude. So he got crushed, but he put up a great fight, right? He wasn't terrible. He was good at a lot of different things, but Floyd Mayweather Jr. was an expert at boxing. So that's how I kind of think about different multi-role fighters going up against purpose-built fighters. Okay, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's say it's a dark and stormy evening. The J-20 has been out patrolling the South China Sea. There's some sort of conflict that kicks off, and the F-35 is there to fight against the J-20. Ultimately, you want to see the J-20 prior to it seeing you. That would be the key, or vice versa if you're flying the J-20. That would be the ideal way for a stealth fighter to operate, to use other sensors and other technology to be able to spot the other aircraft and fire upon it first. But let's say that doesn't happen, or there's some rule of engagement that needs to be met before the F-35 or J-20 can fire at each other. If they got into a dogfight, what I think would potentially happen is the J-20 is going to have those canards in the front, which might give it more nose authority at first, but it's got the big delta wing in the back, which is going to bleed off energy. So it might get one really great move, but if in that move it loses sight or doesn't get a shot off, then I think the F-35 is going to have the advantage just because it's a little bit smaller, potentially a little more nimble, and might have some off bore sight, which just means not straight ahead type of missile capability, which I think could be a huge advantage for that. And overall, I rate the stealth and the integration of the F-35 as above the J-20. So if it came to just ripping around in a jet for a day, I would definitely do that in the J-20. I think it looks like a cool aircraft, but when it comes to lethality and taking into combat, I would take the F-35 any day of the week. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Please go ahead and hit me up on the BJetClean Instagram. Send me any stories or ideas that you have for follow-on videos. Would love to read it. And most of all, I hope you have a great day. Before you go, though, go ahead and dominate that like button and maybe even subscribe. Go ahead and create that little mini sonic boom. See you in the next video.